All right, NFL Network's Cameron Wolfe joins me virtually here inside the TCO studios. And Cam, I don't know how it is where you are with NFL Network, but in Minnesota, there's like an anxious energy right now, right? You got football season around the corner, so that's exciting. But like if you work in football, it's just like, man, summer's over already, man. How is it down there?
It's Miami, so there's always stuff to do. So I am gonna miss the activities that I get to used to do on the weekends that go out the window. But football is back, and I love football. It's why I got in this industry. So training camp's right around the corner. The dopest thing about training camp, and I think it's interesting, especially for teams that have been bad for a while. Everybody has hope. Everybody has optimism. Everybody thinks their team can win the Super Bowl. And so when you go to different cities, the people want to know, hey, what about this guy? What about this guy? Why can we do this? And so I love the optimism because those same teams by October are going to be in a different space. So I love training camp.
Yeah, training camp. I mean, everybody's undefeated right now, right? So you can always say this is our year. And for Vikings fans, I don't think we've been bad. We've been kind of average, like right in the middle the past couple of years. So heading into this training camp, what are some storylines you're looking at or thinking about?
I think starting there is how close are the Vikings? Because when you hire a new head coach and new GM, a lot of times that's a reset. A lot of times you see teams, okay, we're going to rebuild. But talking with people in that building, they feel like they don't need to start over. They're right there. You have a veteran quarterback. They had there's a point this offseason where it's like, are they staying with Kirk Cousins or not? And then he signs the extension. Clearly, you're building around him. I'm eager to see how much Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi together can push them to the next level with this core, and what they view as maybe their window with Kirk Cousins as their starting quarterback. So that to me is super interesting. I think stat-wise, we've seen Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook, all these guys put up big numbers, but it hasn't translated to the wins that you want to see. I think I was looking at a stat that was super interesting to me a little bit ago. You guys had 14 games last year that were one possession games, and you lost 8 of them. You're 6-8 in those games, and so both of them were most in the league. And so to me, it's less about getting more stats and more about in those crucial moments, can you step up and win those games?
Yeah, I mean, you just added like another 20 years of my life, reminded me of the PTSD from last year with all those close games, bro. All of the Vikings fans, last year was so unique, but when you have a guy in Justin Jefferson, you say, okay, this is a guy that's building on from last year and is arguably going to be in that conversation for best receiver in the NFL if he has another season this year. So when you look at this Kevin O'Connell offense, right, he was under Sean McVay last year that won a Super Bowl. Cooper Kupp, Triple Crown winner, most receiving yards, most receptions, most touchdowns. Are we comparing apples to apples when you talk about Justin Jefferson and Cooper Kupp?
Absolutely. I think it was last week when Justin Jefferson said, I think I can be the best receiver in the game by the end of the year. And a lot of people rolled their eyes. I didn't. I think there's absolutely no reason why Justin Jefferson can't get there.
Cousins, deep shot. Got a man. Jefferson, you bet. Touchdown, Minnesota.
I mean, look at what he's done already in his first 2 seasons. 1,400 yards, 1,600 yards. I think that this guy is a top 5 talent in the NFL as a receiver already. And, it's funny, I was at the Pro Bowl, and he seemed to be everybody's favorite player. Just the swag that he has, the energy he has, the grit. Everything about him makes him an infectious face of the league. And one thing that's interesting to me is I talked with him at the Pro Bowl, and one thing he mentioned is the excitement about being in an offensive-minded head coach's scheme. Mike Zimmer's there, defensive-minded guy, and although they threw the ball a lot, it still wasn't an offensive-minded scheme. They wanted to run the ball first. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity for them to have even more targets for Justin Jefferson. And that's when you get to that Cooper Kupp level of targets. I think Cooper Kupp had 145 catches last year. I think Justin Jefferson was maybe like 110, so if you up that 30, 40 more catches, which seems crazy given how much target share he has, but if you throw the ball a little bit more, there's no reason why he can't push that 2,000 yard mark receiving wise, and that gets you to Cooper Kupp level. So I'm excited there. I think there's even more on the bone for Justin Jefferson to kind of bite off.
Yeah, I mean, Cooper Kupp, over 200 targets last year, which means if you put that in this offense, if Justin Jefferson has that, what does that mean for Dalvin Cook? Because he's been the engine of this offense for the past 4 or 5 years.
So that's an interesting fantasy football question, but also for Vikings fans as well. But Dalvin, to me, is one of the top 5 most talented running backs. But a lot of times you see him narrow vision as, okay, he's a pounder. He's a guy who's going to run the ball. I think that he's a better receiver than most people realize. And I think that's where you can uncover the next level of Dalvin being able to still get his touches. So maybe it's less carries for Dalvin. And I think it's been 2 or 3 years since he had 500 yards receiving. Yep. There's no reason why he should be under 500 yards receiving this year. I think a lot of times when you see these multidimensional backs, they're able to catch the ball. They're able to run the football. And Dalvin's in that book. And so I'd imagine that, a handful of carries a game turn into catches a game. And you see a different share where maybe it was closer to 50-50, maybe it's closer to 60-40 pass-run ratio. So I don't think Dalvin gets minimized in this offense. I just think he gets used in a different way.
That's an interesting point. We all know that starts with the offensive line, and Kirk Cousins has the keys to this offense. But I want to talk about the defensive side of the ball, because if we score 100 points on offense but give up 100 points on defense, why I even play the game? So we know the defense last year. We had a lot of discrepancies on that side of the ball. We addressed it first round of the draft, the first 2 picks in the draft. But I want to talk about the first round selection, Cine. He's not the sexiest name. He's the name that a lot of GMs wanted on their roster from other NFL teams. But what are realistic expectations for him? Is it Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year? We haven't seen that since 1990. I think it was Mark Carrier from the Chicago Bears. What are realistic expectations for the rookie?
I think realistic for him is maybe not Defensive Rookie of the Year, because I don't know if he's going to have the pick numbers that you would love to see in that respect. But I think for him to be an enforcer and a mentality on that defense, just being real with you, there was times I watched the Vikings defense last year and was like, what the heck is going on? This isn't the old Vikings I remember. They're just kind of getting run over in the run game, getting kind of thrown on. I think they were in the bottom 10 in a lot of key categories. And so you have to bring the physicality, the intensity, the mentality that who the Vikings used to be defensively back. And so that's where I think Cine can really step in. You obviously have Harrison Smith still there, who's going to be able to be that rangy guy on the back. But I think Cine can come in and fill a lot of roles. He can fill in the box. He can probably cover in the slot. You could see him as a blitzer. You could see him as an extra linebacker, a star. They had the star position a lot in college. I could see him playing that here, where he's doing a little bit of both. And so I think that's realistic for you guys to expect. To every time you watch Vikings defense, you feel Cine, and that's what we saw on him in his college tape. You felt him, in a Georgia defense where there's a lot of dudes. Every time I watched Georgia, I felt Cine, and so I think that's realistic for Vikings fans to hope for.
I'm gonna get you out of here with this. What does success look like for the Vikings in 2022?
Playoffs.
Playoffs.
What's the old saying? I think it's got to be playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Back-to-back seasons, you're under 500. I think talent-wise, when we talk about some of the names we've talked about in this chat, with Justin Jefferson, with Dalvin Cook, with even Harrison Smith, they have too much talent to me not to be a playoff contending team. Obviously, you have Green Bay in the division, and as long as Aaron Rodgers is there, they're going to be there. But the Vikings should be the second best team in the division at worst, and with that, you're going to be in the playoff hunt. And so to me, 9-10 wins should be the expectation and hope for this team. I don't think they're taking a step backwards. I think it's a step forward. So that should be the expectation and the hope for this team.
Yeah, you get to the playoffs, anything can happen from there. Cam, appreciate your time today, man.